hid on the bank of a small creek, a few years her senior, at least. Crouching behind a green bush littered with small purple berries, Kate peeked through the leaves to watch them. She swallowed hard at the sight of the boys, quite savage with their shirts stripped off and cases of arrows slung over their bare shoulders. They took turns shooting at a birch tree and missing by a large margin. Pulling back on his arrow, one of the boys tilted it higher, shooting it to the uppermost branches. Losing the arrow among the branches, he scowled, and Kate squinted to see better through the bush. A faint bird call floated through the air, followed by tiny baby bird chirps. Mocking calls made by one of the savage boys met her ears, and she shivered. They docked more arrows and aimed at the nest. What animals! Kate stood to intercede, indignation coursing through her, when something fell on the top of her head. She rubbed her skull, lifting the piece of tree bark that had fallen on her and tossing it aside. The larger of the two golden-haired savages was aiming his arrow once again. How could he purposefully hurt a nest of baby birds? She opened her mouth to call to him when she was pelted with multiple pieces of tree bark. That was no accident. Kate looked up this time, sweeping her gaze over the tree. She saw nothing but a canopy of tree leaves and branches. Shaking her head to loosen any remaining bark, she took a step away from the bush and collapsed when something hard hit her square between the shoulders. Ouch! That was certainly too hard to be tree bark. Sprawled on her hands and knees, she scrambled to her feet and cringed at the mud smeared across her pinafore. There would be no hiding this mess from Uncle. She searched the branches above her, shielding her eyes from more falling debris. They appeared empty. Another horrid attempt at a bird call pulled her attention toward the savage boys. She had to do something. A quiet whistle reached her, and she whipped her head up again. A small hand waved from within the branches, nearly at the top of the tree. She couldn't quite make out anything beyond the waving hand at first. But her eyes focused, and she narrowed her gaze on brown breeches and a shoeless foot dangling from a high branch. A boy hid, perched in the branches, his thin face angled toward her, eyes wide with fright. Was he afraid of the savages? Or afraid for Kate? Regardless, the magnitude of his fear was warning enough for her, and she crouched down behind the bush once again, watching helplessly as the two older boys shot arrow after arrow at the poor defenseless bird and her chicks. Time stretched slowly, dragging on before the boys ran out of arrows. Instead of gathering what they had shot, they discarded their weapons, pulled shirts over their heads, and turned to walk away from the scene, and directly toward Kate. She looked up to the branches. The shoeless boy put a single finger up to his lips, and she nodded. It would be a mistake to call out. But she desperately wanted to ask why he was hiding. Would the boys hurt him if they found him? Would they hurt her? Crouching lower into the bush, she squeezed her eyes shut as the sound of boots crunching twigs grew steadily louder in her ears. "Charles, take a look," a voice said directly beside her. Her shoulders jerked in surprise, startled to hear the refined accent of the upper class on so savage a boy. But a peek at the blonde boy's clothing revealed quality fabric and well-cared-for boots. Though, the credit for the shine to the boots likely went to their servants. Kate shuddered before peeking into the face of the one called Charles, and immediately wished she hadn't. His expression was a display of mild curiosity, but within his eyes was a gleam which she recognized from Uncle. Hate. "I see," Charles said in an uncomfortably tranquil tone. "Looks like we found a lost little girl in need of a helping hand. Shall we help her?" "I'm not lost," Kate said belligerently before snapping her mouth closed.